Welcome back to Bot Bros, a series of the AI-driven marketer where we turn the AI hype into help so that you can get the most out of what's going on with AI today. I'm Dan Sanchez, and I'm joined by my brother, Travis Sanchez, and that was probably the smoothest intro I've read for this series so far.
Let's go.
No double takes on that one. It's not even live anymore, but here we are. Man, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. It's been freaking busy this week when it comes to AI news. So I wanted to bring some hot topics that are coming that are going to mean something for marketers real soon, starting with the big announcement that just happened yesterday. I got out of a live AI training with the AI Business Society plug from Social Media Examiner, and this news was like buzzing all over my apps, my email, all over social and X and all that kind of stuff. But OpenAI previewed this big new tool. We knew it was coming, but they previewed what they're calling Operator. It's essentially a program that can use a browser to do whatever you can do on a browser, whether you're, buying something, returning a pair of shoes you bought for your wife that she didn't like. It's a case study I just saw this morning. or checking out or getting rentals or reserving restaurants, whatever. Like, it can do all the stuff you can do on a browser. It can do because it can type and it can click. Those are the two inputs we have. So you've taken a look at this. What's your reaction to Operator?
I watched the 3 videos that the OpenAI had released as examples of how you could use Operator. And honestly, if you've ever bought an airline ticket or you've ever tried to order groceries for delivery, there are so many boxes that need to be checked or questions that you get asked that you have to, if they don't have the right eggs, can I choose a different product for you? Oh, sorry, there's no hotels in the area you're staying. Are you wanting to, which area? It's like there's so many questions that come up, which as the example was showing, Operator will come back to you and ask those follow-up questions. But I'm just going, why not just do it yourself? I couldn't see the value, especially when they're charging $200 for what Operator is doing in some of these more simple operated tasks. But this is obviously just the beginning of maybe Operator will be a custom operator where they know your preferences. They already know what you like and what to choose. So but again, they were short 1 to 2 minute clips. So there wasn't a lot of detail in them. But my first reaction was like, bro, I would rather just do it myself. That just seems like more work. However, kind of fun to see OpenAI control your browser and actually start operating some of these websites.
And it's not super new. Claude pushed out a similar update back in September. It's a little rougher and harder to get going than what OpenAI just did. And we've known it's been coming. OpenAI bought like a big company that like lets IT teams log into other people's computers to be able to control them. So that's what this is based on, is that acquihire acquisition they did. So we knew something like this was coming, and it makes a lot of sense. I think the thing it's just not that useful right now because, like you said, there's too many choices. You got to go buy airline tickets. If God forbid you're buying from Frontier and it picks like get all the luggage, yes, buy the warranty. You're like, oh gosh, no.
Oh my God.
There's a reason why we're buying from Frontier because it's cheap. Maybe get me one carry-on. Right? So many decisions to make. And it'll get better, like you said. It'll learn your preferences and just check out. Like it'll just repeat tasks. Here's where I think it'll be a big deal for marketers. One of the big roadblocks to agents right now that I thought was a roadblock, and it's not going to be a roadblock, is that I was like, well, it's going to take forever to like tap into all these APIs, give it permissions to do all the things, and then if you ever worked with APIs or tools that connect to the APIs, it's like they can only do so much. The AP only so much is open on these APIs sometimes, and it can start things but not stop things. Not like you can in the CRM or whatever tool you're using. But you know what happens if you go just straight through the browser? You can bypass all that crap. If it could just do what a human can do, you don't need APIs anymore. Because humans don't need APIs. We don't interface through these things. You just use the same freaking user interface.
Right.
And then it just works. So that if they can get this to work well and they increase the context window so it can remember what you do, then that's going to change the game. I can imagine a day where you actually train it like you would an intern. You're like, hey, this is how we use our CRM. Here's the task that I want you to learn. Here, look, I'm going to log in. Here's the credentials. Use these again. I want you to go to this page. When you see this, you have to think about this thing. Once you think about it, make this choice, and then go over here and copy and paste this to this. And then you go through the tech checklist and be like, okay, and that's how you run this process.
Wow.
AI will be able to do it just as well as most people. And now it's recorded and had been trained on the task. So you don't have to worry about it like making the choices. We could probably do the same thing with our personal stuff too. Like buying an airline ticket, be like, hey, I'm going to teach you how I think about buying an airline ticket. So in the future, you can use the same processing. And that way you don't have to ask me so many questions in the future. It's like, great, let me tag along with your purchase and I'll ask you questions along the way for future reference.
It's only going to get better, but I just can't help but use some discernment and seeing the holes at first. Like giving it tasks, operate in this way, do this Monday through Friday, check for new leads, check for new donors, check for new sales, whatever it might be. Send them this email. New information in a lot of organizations and companies are coming through so frequently. Team meetings happen. Hey, we've decided to pivot from here. So I'm like, is it more work to go update the operator, your AI operator, than it is to have your staff members sitting there in the meeting? And I'm like, I guess in some cases it would be, but how many operators do you have going on? And then you, as the person controlling all these operators, remembering every operator you have out there. You know how you have email systems and how you can easily forget the different funnels that you have created, the different pathways people are going down. And you need to like go cut some of these old fundraising or these old sale marketing campaigns. Those things get forgotten all the time. I'm like, oh man, is it going to be worse? You're going to forget how many operators you got sending emails that you don't want to have them sending. That's where my brain went, which is maybe it's too negative, but I'm like, okay, how much work is it to keep these operators going smoothly?
You know, for some people, maybe a lot. I don't forget those things.
Oh, good. Well, you're built different.
I guess I organize them in such a way, but they were more easily forgotten if you delegated somebody else to build them.
Well,
like,
that's what we're doing essentially, right?
That's what you were doing. But I when I'm thinking back to my BGU experience, I had like handcrafted them all. So like I was hyper aware of every single element in there, you know. But once I started delegating it to like Matt Schmidt and he started building a lot of them for me, I'd go in there and be like, what did he do that for? Oh, and then he explained it. I'm like, oh, that makes sense, you know, but I was unaware of what was going on in there after somebody else was building them, of course. We'll get to the point where AI is building and we'll have AI training AI teams. That'll be interesting. But
oh, wow. Here we go.
I do think a lot from a leadership perspective. I feel like everybody's will shift up in the organization. So like all frontline workers will now be teams. They'll essentially be managers, which means they'll be accountable like a manager. But do they have manager skills? Not all the manager skills count because they don't have to worry about employee retention, which is a big part of being a manager. You have to get people to like want to work. But the other big part is just getting the most out of your team. You're going to be held accountable to it. So that's a whole new level.
How great of a leader do you need to be in terms of emotional awareness, self-awareness, communication when it comes to AI operators? They're not the same as human resources, right?
Well, think of like a director. If you have a team of like 20 people, will now feel more complex in the decisions you have to make because it'll be more like dealing with a team of 100 people. If each person's got like a team of 5, it just creates more complexity at the director level than it was before. And now that director is operating a lot more like a VP would have in their tactics and their strategy and their thinking, less in their people skills, because AI won't complain and you won't have the same kind of like, you know, how a lot of leadership time ends up going to just dealing with the drama with the people. They'll still be that, but that won't scale the same way of like the technical complexity of like workflows, processes, job descriptions. All that will get more complicated. The people dynamics will stay just about the same, I think. But this whole agent thing is coming. And I remember sitting at the beginning of the year being like looking at all the new models, which is actually our next point of news, is like OpenAI's O3 Mini is coming out within weeks. So sometime in February, we're going to see O3 Mini. I assume it's more powerful than O1 Pro. it's even coming to the free tier of ChatGPT, they said.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, so we went from having this like pro level O1 model that's behind a $200 wall to O3 mini, which I assume is more powerful than O1 Pro. And it's just going to be available for free. And then the plus users they probably only get a few instances of it. The plus users get a lot of instances of it. And then who knows? I don't know. I guess the pro users just get shortchanged on that one. But these models, like we literally just had O1 preview in September, O1 December, and now O3 mini in February. And then who knows when the proper O3 comes out.
It's fast.
It's going fast.
Really fast. Wow.
So I was thinking we'd have some quasi agents by the end of the year. I'm now starting to rethink that because of this operator, because O3 is coming out so fast. I'm like, might be by summer. I just cut my timeline in half.
Do you have any speculation of where this O3 mini will differ from O4 and O1?
I think it'll just process faster and be cheaper to use. I think where it'll be a big deal is on all the applications we're currently using. Okay. So like in HubSpot and High Level and things that are using this, and I'm trying to build automations in make.com right now. And now I have probably a cheap and fairly reliable like reasoning thing to make harder decisions. I can now plug into it and plug it into an automation where you need to, because you really don't need these reasoning models most of the time. ChatGPT 4.0 will do the job and do it relatively well. The reasoning models can even overthink sometimes and run you astray, where O4 would do better because it's just going to think more simply. But the reasoning models can tend to overthink like humans, especially if you don't give it enough information. Imagine giving like a high-end consultant a task of like, hey, build me $1 billion business for me. You're like, hi, what's your name? What do you do? Imagine like a consultant that knows how to do it. And then someone, Joe Schmo, just comes and asks them in the middle of nowhere, like, hey, what would you do if you were me, if you had no resources and you needed to build $1 billion business?
What are your competencies? Like, what are your passions? What would you enjoy doing?
Where do you live? Do you have any money? Like, there's so many questions, right? He needs a lot more data in order to fine tune it to that person. Sure. And I think that's why AI needs a lot more often with these reasoning models. Give them more context and they fly. But I do think it's important to start considering that the skill set of the future is going to be less technical and tapping into all these APIs. When we see Operator come out, what it's telling me is your ability to delegate and actually understand what needs to happen is the key differentiator. It's what's going to make a marketer now. What needs to happen? AI will even help you think about what needs to happen, but you need to understand it to the point where you can actually make the choice and be like, hey, here's the objective. Oh, here's some options. Okay, let's build this. You actually have to know how to build the processes. You have to know how to delegate it like you're delegating to a staff member. That's kind of where the thinking, I'm like, every marketer is going to need to know how to do this, even from like day one entry level. If you all have AI agents, you have to be able to delegate and actually get them going on stuff.
Wow.
I don't know if people are ready for that, so we'll see.
I haven't thought about how people will respond, at least in mass, if it would be the early majority of people. It's so many updates are coming so quickly. I think people they're creatures of habit, so if they start messing with ChatGPT and even just utilizing simple prompts, they'll just continue to do that and not even keep up with the new things being released until it becomes more mainstream. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I saw an awesome post that's in our notes. I'm going to skip to that before we jump to a different news item. But it's essentially but it fits right into what we're talking to. So I'm just going to skip to it. It was somewhat viral post on LinkedIn, but it was better. It was better than the attention it got. It should have got a lot more attention because this guy was freaking right on this one. And it has the adoption curve, with the innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority, laggards. Like we've talked about this multiple times. And it has their innovators and early adopters kind of split off. And above it, it has a Lego set with just a bunch of colorful bricks. And then above the early majority and late majority and the laggards, it has different Lego sets with like Star Wars sets, Statue of Liberty, Harry Potter castle. And he essentially made the point in the LinkedIn post, like, the innovators and early adopters essentially can't wait to figure it out. And like they get it and say, I can't wait to figure out what I can build with this, versus the majority of people say, I'll wait until you tell me what I can build with this.
Wow.
And that's going to be the difference between the early adopters and the early majority in crossing the chasm.
Wow.
I thought it was a really good insight. Don't give me a bunch of bricks and tell me what to build and let me figure out what to build. Just tell me what to build and I want to make something awesome. And give me the instructions and step by step how to do it. I'm like, crap, that's where we're at with AI. Until you have really clear defined ways of using it, people aren't going to use it, which is a huge advantage for everybody else who like is creative enough to build their own stuff with their own little Lego bricks. It's going to be massive. And this actually making me rethink like how long it takes for the early majority to come out. If the AI companies can't figure out, the box set of how to do this. But we might, and we might be able to use AI to do it. Donald Miller just came out with StoryBrand.ai, I found out this morning.
Really?
Feel bad for all the StoryBrand consultants out there. Yeah, because now you could just give it information about your business and it'll come up with your StoryBrand or versions of it. And it makes sense. I'm like, I could do it in ChatGPT with a custom GPT if I wanted to, but he built his own software. I'm sure it works, but it's taking his playbook and then giving back results. So a bunch of thinkers with pre-existing great frameworks can literally just plug ChatGPT's API into it, and then bam, it's. Wow. I think that's kind of like the same as, at least in a B2B sense, that's kind of similar to like building the Millennium Falcon versus getting an empty box.
You find yourself as an early adopter. I feel like you're definitely an early adopter when it comes
100%. As soon as I got ChatGPT, I was like, what can I do with this? This is going to be exciting. Even now, I'm like, ooh, I'm going to figure out new ways to do this.
Yeah. Well, with this depiction, I'm like, yeah, I'm probably in the early majority. I can't even call myself an early adopter.
Hold on, get stuck. There's a poll. I actually took a poll. It's funny. I didn't mean for these things to like collide altogether, but the poll I did a couple of weeks ago, I actually asked people, where do you think AI is in the adoption curve for marketing? And people voted. I put in, innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority were the four options. With 13% of people said innovators, 63% said early adopters, 22% said early majority, and then 2% said late majority. So clearly most people are thinking it's still in the early adopter phase. I'm surprised though that so many people said early majority, and maybe it's just because I'm talking to pretty technical marketers on LinkedIn, where they're hearing about it all the time. All their friends are using it. Their team uses it, has been for over a year now. So I could see how it would like warp a perspective. Most people I talk to like don't use it at all. Like just people outside of marketing and tech.
Marketing was one of the first. I mean, AI came out. Man, I don't know of a better use case other than marketers to use it for copywriting and logo creation, even if it was just for spitballing ideas in a creative way. Like I was definitely an early adopter when it came to AI and marketing for sure. But compared to you, if I compare myself to you, you're more of on that early adopter innovator chasm line.
I'm not on the cutting edge of innovation, but I'm right behind them.
I know. That's why I
hate being the first person to use something, but I like being number two when it comes to a brand new. Right. Like I literally wait if a new we were just talking about Operator that came out. I don't care to be the first person using Operator, but I'm looking forward to people publishing the case studies of first use cases. And then I like reverse engineering the early case studies for marketing. So as in marketing, I guess I'm an innovator. As far as like overall tech, not quite at the bleeding edge. I'd have to also be asked in the pilot programs to be asked, because usually those guys are the first ones of the case studies.
Right.
So we probably need more box sets, but I mean, that's why we're here. That's what I'm hoping to do with the AI driven marketers, provide the picture for the freaking puzzle so that you can actually put it together. And I've spent like a year trying to find case studies of like, you could do it like this. You could do it like this, do a prompt here, do it like this. Because most people want instructions. If you're listening to this, this is still super early. You were actually in the like early adopters. And if you're listening to this right now, you're in the early adopters. which means you get to be part of the crowd, a small crowd of people that get to define what the box looks like and what good looks like and how to use these things. And it needs to happen. It needs to happen fast. It needs to happen for every industry within marketing. There's a ton of room. But if we're going to have this thing enter from early adopters to early majority, a lot of people need to build the box sets, and that's going to be up to you. It's going to be up to me. It's going to be up to everybody listening to this thing to create a picture of what this thing is supposed to look like, which is a perfect segue for the last thing I wanted to talk about. Gosh, sometimes the lack of planning actually ends up perfect. I had this revelation this morning. I was thinking about, like, are we going to lose jobs? Are we going to gain jobs? Which is it going to be? And honestly, I've waffled back and forth because I love the tech, but honestly, there's a lot of reason to be concerned. And I think I made a decision this morning, and I've kind of always been there in like team optimism, but I found a new reason to be in team optimism. And that is, it could probably go either way. And I'm like, well, if we don't have an optimistic picture of what can be and what will be, then the chances of it becoming a reality are actually much, much lower. I feel like we actually have a choice to make it what we want it to make. And therefore, I'm going to try to paint the best dang picture I possibly can. And, like forcefully head in that direction and take as many people as I can with me. You ever hear Dave Hawes, a mentor to both of us, a leader? He said there's no such thing as a pessimistic leader. Do you agree with that?
There's no such thing as a pessimistic leader. Meaning what? Bringing the if you are pessimistic, you're not a leader.
You can't be a leader.
Yeah.
Have you ever met a pessimistic leader?
Interesting. From what I've even learned about myself over the course of 3 to 5 years, uncovering the victim mentality inside of me still, where every situation is being blamed on somebody else. And I think that pessimism comes from more of a victim mentality. So you could be put over to lead, but if you have that victim mentality where that pessimism is constantly rearing its head, you might be a leader, but you might be a bad one. So yeah, I don't know if you can't be a leader, but if you want to be a good leader, then
I guess it's a good caveat. You can't be a good leader and be pessimistic.
Right. Versus you can be a leader. It's like, well, there's bad leaders everywhere that are negative and always looking for the demon around the corner. But the good ones are so optimistic, so believing, dying on their sword and helping people. So
sometimes I think about the leaders that are thought leaders. So they're not leading people in person and towards like an organizational goal of some kind, but they're out there leading the thinking of others, the thought leaders. They influence others' thinking, and they're really pessimistic about the world. So they're leading based on fear, which has happened a lot. That's why I'm like, well, I think you're right though. It's like it's really good leaders doing good things, and you have to define good and all that kind of stuff. But
fear sells too. So if you go that route, you have the blind leading the blind, you have the pessimists leading the pessimists, and you can make a lot of money from selling fear,
Selling fear. Yeah.
Yeah.
But part of me wants to really like fight that, because I'm like, I really have this. I know this transition, even if it makes a lot of jobs, if AI in the best case scenario creates a lot of new jobs, it's still going to be a painful transition because we're going to replace jobs and it's going to be different. There's going to be reskilling, and people freaking hate change, hate it. And I'm like, all right, well, like it's not going backwards. We are not going back. We are only going forwards. So let's put a smile on our faces, lean into it, and do the best that we freaking can to make it as great as we freaking can. That's kind of like, I'm like, what other option do we have? Let's make the most of this thing, celebrate what it is, and realistically put the safeguards we need to put around it. Right? I'm not saying we don't need to like wave the flag and be careful, but dang, let's do the most we can do to make it the future we want it to be.
I think this will it'll always take place within generations. As we came up as millennials, seeing baby boomers kind of being laggards when it came to transitioning businesses and organizations to the 21st age, putting their business on Google, no longer using paper spreadsheets to run finance, actually getting on, QuickBooks, still there's those laggards who are retiring, who refuse to bring it over to the 21st century. You will now see a many millennials who are blue collar workers. They do not want to use AI because they're threatened by it. They don't understand it fully, and it scares them.
You
So
mean
what
white
we
collar
don't
workers?
understand fully brings fear, right? And AI is one of the more complicated technologies of our lifetime. So I think there's going to be a huge wave of even millennials who used to be early adopters for the internet are now going to become laggards because they've gotten used to the way of living, which is, hey, a computer's good enough. You know what I mean? As long as I'm in control. So that the generational I don't know, issue, but current status is going to be interesting to watch because I already have friends who are blue collar workers. They're like, get that AI out of here, man. We
Are
don't
they
need
blue
that.
collar or is that white collar?
Blue collar.
Like people that are working with their hands and stuff? Because usually, okay.
They're like, I don't know if they're threatened by it because you're going to
They love
need.
social media, but they hate AI.
Yeah, I'm telling you, many blue collar workers. I think more white collar workers see the benefit and see the workload being relieved a little bit from the advancement. But
interesting. It's funny because the blue collar jobs are less at risk right now.
I know, but they're the ones who are
Maybe the white collar
kind of
jobs are like, yeah, I better figure this thing out because
it's gonna change the game.
There's a future where we can all see where this goes. Like my job goes away right now.
But even I was working on a car at this small group that I'm a part of, and they were rebuilding a car, and they couldn't figure out how a piece of rubber trim is supposed to go and which way it was going. I'm like, let me just turn on my video with O1 preview, and I'm talking to it like, hey, this is a seal for a 1950 F100. How does it supposed to go? Is this accurate? And she was like, yeah, it looks like that's the right way it's supposed to go. And the guy was like, what did you just do? So they were amazed, but also like, wait, you are showing it and it's talking to you. Their mind was blown when I was using the video feature. So I'm wondering how they're going to respond when they're working on their mechanics. So whatever they're working on, and their new boss is like, hey, we have these cameras. You need to show AI if you have a question, what you're working on, if you have a question. And they're going to be like, I think they're going to be angry about it, to be honest.
Yeah. If you want to blow people's minds, that one feature is it. I had a lot of fun with Santa back when it was out. I don't know if it's still out, but they had that Santa
I don't think so.
voice over.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, have you met Santa yet? They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, do you want to meet him? You can have a conversation with him. It's pretty interactive.
Wow.
You can't see him, but dang, he sees you. So that was really fun. And every kid, they could probably be pretty older and be convinced that it was actually Santa. It's pretty funny. But that is probably the most futuristic tech that's like works smoothly, reliably, just about every time. That still blows my mind every time I use the video and voice tech. I haven't really figured out how to use it for marketing. Stuff around the home, fixing things.
It's great.
Solving computer problems.
Marketing.
But like every time you need to show somebody something, like you would an expert, if you needed to show them like, hey, this is what I'm dealing with, then it's pretty helpful. Otherwise, I think that's probably the main takeaway is like if you're troubleshooting something in a software or on your computer and you're getting an error message, you could always copy and paste it. But to take a screenshot of it, you can't. I wish you could just share your screen, like a video of your screen, and it could walk you through. I guess pretty soon it'll just like do it for you since it can control your screen. But pretty soon, all of our troubleshooting and all our tech support will just come from AI, and it'll be wonderful because it'll be super patient. It'll be very kind. It'll show up immediately. It'll be great. So that's the only use case I can think for that, but I'm sure more are coming.
I just had jokes in my mind about meeting with your head of marketing and you're like, hey, is her face unsatisfied with my feedback? Or yes, she seems very angry. As they're listening to me talking to OpenAI.
That will be a thing, is it's recording everybody's faces and stuff. It'll be like, what was the emotional state of the team? How do you think they feel, ChatGPT?
Hey, that'll be good for those leaders.
Donna was not happy.
For those leaders that are a little bit unaware,
she was slow. Yeah.
They lack emotional intelligence, so they had no idea that their pitch actually went terrible, and no one's bought in, even though the CEO's like, I think everyone's on board.
Well, great. Maybe it could all help. We'll all have AI coaches, and that I am looking forward to that. Like having an AI coach that's patient yet challenges
Totally.
you, but like just enough. Have you been brave enough to ask ChatGPT to roast you based on what it knows about you?
No,
I
but
haven't
that's
done it, and
funny.
I'm scared. I'm like, no, because it can be brutally mean if you want it, if you ask it to be.
Oh man. No, I haven't done that. I'm scared.
Yeah,
It'll
I'm
be like
scared.
you're a entrepreneur in hopes of gains through crypto that will never happen because you're going to get the rug pulled out from under you because you're emotionally tied to all your investments. I'm like, oh, okay,
Stop it. Leave
stop.
me alone. Someday. But I like how ChatGPT and all the AIs are pretty nice and encouraging. I'm like, yes, if we could all have a coach, and you could kind of do this if you prompt it yourself to do this, but if it was proactive, telling you based on meetings you've had and emails you've sent and the work that you're doing, if it was actively coaching you, like we're all going to have an executive coach, world class executive coach in our pocket, and that's going to be awesome. Imagine we're all going to have personal trainers for our gym workout and
I
routines
love
that have
that.
all our vitals and stats,
And you could wear a
medical
bracelet
stuff.
where it shocks you to hold you accountable to get out of bed.
Shot collar.
It's literally locked on your wrist. You can't take it off without a code.
Okay. Oh, the theoreticals. But I think the important takeaway is this whole world is being invented right now. It
Yeah,
is not defined. It is not going to be determined by like even the big tech companies. Like we all get to define this together. And I think it's important for marketers to actually lead the change. We are the first ones in the organization to heavily use AI. And
right.
while IT might come in and kind of like put some thinking, and rightly so, some procurement and some thinking about how to leverage it for the whole organization the way it's beneficial for the whole organization. I strongly believe that marketing as the department gets to be the one to champion and set the standard for what this is going to be for the organization. And we as marketers need to be the leaders that paint the future of how this is going to be awesome and then help the other departments catch on. Because like this is going to impact finance. This is definitely going to impact HR. Obviously it's going to impact IT, but like sales, everything's going to be impacted by it. And marketing gets to be the front runner showcasing how it is. So do you want to be the pessimistic one showing how it doesn't work, or do you want to lean into it, figure it out while it's still in this like goofy middle ground where there's still a lot of manual work that has to come around it and we're transitioning from just prompting to actually using agents over the next year or two, lead the change in like that old Gandhi quote, be the change you want to see. Super fluffy for the leadership quotes this morning, but
Yeah.
honestly, I felt like it needed to be said because I find myself leaning towards the pessimistic and the sensational headlines all the time,
Mm,
like falling bait to them. And I'm like, no, like this morning, I was like, nope, I'm going to stay in the optimistic team and I'm going to keep pushing this thing because if I don't, then we won't get the thing that we want. And so I'm
it's
like,
good.
nope, I'm going to freaking fight for the
It's
thing that I
good.
want to see.
I'm optimistic. I have been. And I've pulled people from that pessimist side over to the optimist side where they have messaged me multiple times apologizing for how negative they have been against AI because it just felt violating that it wasn't genuinely coming from a human. But now they've been like, I understand the power and that it is good for humanity. It's good for workflows. It's good for copywriting and script writing. And I use it all the time now. So there, you people can be adapted to what AI is bringing.
I was going to close right here, but I was just thinking, I'm like, the thing that's hard, and the reason why change is hard is because we have to replace the value we were bringing, which was busy work a lot of times and
Wow.
necessary. We had to do a lot of busy work in order to get things done. But if that goes away, then what value do we bring now? Right? It's the harder work. Creative work is harder work because if you're not busy doing all the little nitty gritty work, which just takes time,
Mm-hmm.
then you actually have to buckle down and do the real work. So what is that? Like I have to go back every single team member. If you didn't have to do 80% of all the busy work, what would you do? How would you fill that time? And it can't
Wow.
be vacation. You have to find new way to add value.
It's good.
And if you're a leader thinking about this right now, I think this is it's not just your job, you should be thinking about this for every one of your reports. If 80% of their workload was gone because it got automated over the next 2 years, how can that person now add value? That's what you need to be asking them about and having conversations about now, because and try to find what they're passionate about, how they can add, what they've been wanting to do but haven't been able to do. Well, start getting them thinking about even probably working on it now. Unfortunately, there are people who like to just do rote things. So I'm sure we'll find new rote things for them to do that AI still can't do for some reason. I don't know what to do about the people who just like to literally do the same thing over and over again and they're call it good. Those people are probably going to be hurt the most by this change, but we'll figure it out.
Solid.
Well, thanks for joining us. One final announcement is that I finally got a speaking slot at Social Media Marketing World coming up this March. So if you want to see me speak on AI, it's actually just an AMA, and I'm co-hosting it with Michael Stelzner, which is very fun. I think I was like I think they had one slot open, and then I kind of made it into the last slot as co-presenting with Michael Stelzner, which is going to be awesome. So if you've been listening to this and you want to meet in person, come to Social Media Marketing World. I'm going to be there. I'll be at a booth for the AI Business Society where I'm doing a lot of training right now, and I'll be speaking. So come. I'll be putting a link in the description. I know, but honestly, if you want to meet in person, if you want to go to a conference where like half the content almost is about AI, even though it's called Social Media Marketing World, this is probably the leading AI marketing conference that I've seen out there right now. So
Nice.
come join me.